Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in really quickly here. As we finish up Unit 4 and then look at Unit 5, and I'll just take a quick look at the due dates here. So I'm recording this Friday morning, January 25th, maybe? 25th. It's early, okay. Okay, so our due date. So we've just finished Unit 4, which had us primarily looking at flight patterns, but also attending to the composition side of our composition class in terms of thinking about the overall writing process maybe, but more specifically thesis statements and what kinds of thesis statements we develop in a class like this, where we really use the same kind of argumentative style that you would use in almost any other composition class, where you propose a thesis or make a claim and then support that with evidence of some kind, but ours are a little more focused in that we're writing about literature eventually. And so the thesis is an interpretive claim about that piece of literature, like an analysis of some kind. And then, of course, the proof or the details, or the supporting evidence for that claim are the details or examples that we pull from the text, the short story or whatever that we're reading. So again, just kind of laying the groundwork with some of the pieces of that composition puzzle that we'll put into practice in the major writing assignments, which kind of gets us into Unit 5, which is now due Monday, January 28th. So again, pretty quick turnaround. Keep in mind that these quick turnarounds early give us a little more time to work on the major writing assignments. So there's a sort of a purpose to these quick due dates, almost back to back, it probably feels like. Unit 5 then, again, kind of refines our sense of how the kind of essay writing that we're doing, not because we're actually practicing it yet, but because there's actually two different writing assignments in this unit. So I'm having you read another short story, Boys and Girls by Alice Munro, which might seem a little distant as far as the setting or it has this sort of rural, feel to it. But I think the fundamental theme is really pretty relatable across generations and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're reading it sort of in preparation for, or as the basis for, the two writing assignments that we have for this unit. And the writing assignment here, it kind of artificially separates out so you can see really clearly the difference between summary, which is one of the assignments, which is, again, obviously just reporting on what happens in the story. It's not your analysis. It's not your reaction to, like I liked or disliked. It's none of that stuff. It's just a rehearsing of the details, or a telling of the details from the story. Now, of course, you have to be judicious about which details you tell. You can't just rewrite the entire story. And again, the summary that you write will be developed in terms of some sort of organization, like with a clear introduction and then various paragraphs. So it's not just one big lump of like this happened and this happened and this happened and this, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing that I'm looking for beyond just those basics is that you really stay away from, and you have to be conscious to do this, because our natural tendency is actually to comment and sort of interpret the story, but to actually stay away from doing that interpretive stuff. So just recalling details from the story. The other assignment is a discussion board, which is the exact opposite. Instead of telling the story, instead of even interpreting the story, I'm asking for your evaluative response. You liked it, you disliked it, it was too short, too long, you liked the main character, you didn't, or just whatever, right? So you really want to see the difference, and that's why these two work together really well, is you really want to see the difference between that straight summary style, just the details, and then that discussion board where it's just your kind of subjective opinion. Now, you might cite something from the story, like, I really didn't like the main character because on page whatever she did something. So certainly you can use a detail, but it's in support of your subjective opinion of the thing. Ultimately, the essays that we write are kind of a mix of both of these, but really they're somewhere in the middle in terms of they are interpretation, but it's obviously your interpretation or your analysis. It's not your subjective opinion, right? It's not you like or dislike, but it's that you believe this particular theme to be important in the story, or you believe setting to be important in the story. And then, of course, you use the idea of summary in terms of looking for details in the story to support that interpretation. So the kinds of writing we're doing in Unit 5 here are kind of artificially, opposed to each other. One is very fact-based, and that's it. The other is very opinion-based, right? And our kind of literary essay that we will ultimately write is kind of in the middle. It's not opinion. It's not just a retelling of the story. It's an analysis that's supported with details. So again, the primary thing that I'm looking for in terms of the grading part of it is obvious stuff like good mechanics and grammar, organization, and that sort of thing. But really to make sure that you've understood the difference between summary and the discussion board, or the response part of it. And that ultimately, the thing to take away is that your major essays for the class will really be neither one of these, like, in total. So it won't just be summary, and it certainly won't just be your subjective opinion. It'll be some, slightly changed mix of those things. So that's sort of the takeaway from this unit. You'll also notice that there's a very brief quiz, quote unquote, at the bottom, or the last part of this unit. And it's really not a quiz about you knowing some fact about Alice Munro. Fundamentally, what the quiz makes sure is that you've got a library card that works, because when we get to units where we're doing research, you'll be using the library databases, so a subscription service that COD pays for. And to access that off of campus, which most of you will probably be doing, you need to have a library card that's active and up to date and all that kind of stuff. And so, of course, if you don't have a card, or it's not up to date, you want to discover that now, when at worst it costs you a point or whatever, like basically nothing, rather than when you're trying to do research where it actually, matters points-wise for the course. Okay, so as usual, if you have questions, be in touch with me. Keep on top of things so you're not turning things in at the last minute. Again, it just makes for kind of, shoddy work. You feel rushed. You never do quite as well as you probably could. And you always invite that Murphy's Law that if something can go wrong, it'll do so at the worst possible time at 10 o'clock on the due date night, basically. So keep on top of things and stay focused on what we're doing. And again, always be thinking, what sort of conceptual material am I learning that I can then apply so that the prof knows that I'm getting what I'm supposed to get out of the course. All right, if you have questions, be in touch, and I'll talk to you soon.